Good morning and welcome to First Parish Brewster. We are a Unitarian, Universalist, welcoming congregation of people of diverse philosophies and beliefs, people of various cultures and races, sexual orientations, gender identities, abilities, and socio-economic backgrounds. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your path, may this be a place of rest and restoration on your journey. For those of you who may be first-time visitors this morning, welcome. Welcome on this morning, which we make sacred by our presence together. A big welcome to people streaming. Let's wave at them. We're glad you are here. I am Twinks Hastings, your Director of Lifespan Religious Education, happy to be welcoming you to worship today with our worship associate, Liz Libby. Our services are recorded and available on YouTube midweek. We do ask that all over the age of 4 mask whilst in our buildings. We welcome and celebrate the noises, movements, and mirth that little ones bring in our services, but we do ask that you please silence your cell phones. This is the 4th week of the Stewardship Pledge campaign, which runs through next Sunday, March 27th, when we will have a celebration of your generosity. If you have not yet pledged, we ask that you take the time to consider your pledge as soon as possible. You can either fill in the pledge card and send it to the FPB office, put it in the collection plate, or pledge online on our website. Members of the Stewardship Committee, I think they're going to wave, Pat Stover, Tavia Oslo, Susan Flaws, Barry Powers, and Debbie Klein are here today, identified by the Have You Pledged Yet signs around their necks. See them? They have pledge cards and can answer any questions or concerns you have about the pledging process. Thank you for your generosity. Welcome to our service today. It is so good to be together.
There are 2 moments that matter. One is when you know that your one and only life is absolutely valuable and alive. The other is when you know that your life, as presently lived, is entirely pointless and empty. You need both of them to keep you going in the right direction. Lent is about both. The first such moment gives you energy and joy by connecting you with your ultimate source and ground. The second gives you limits and boundaries and a proper humility, so you keep seeking the source and ground and not just your small self. Please rise as you are able and join in singing hymn 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. We will sing this 3 times through, and because Twinks and I are both former camp counselors, we are going to sing this as a round. So follow our lead.
Where
I'm going to invite all of our children and youth forward for our affirmation. Welcome, welcome. So, I don't know if we all remember, but a few weeks ago, Alanita taught us how our affirmation was meant to go in our church. And so we're going to try and do that. Y'all, adults can remain seated also. But we are going to, the CYM folks down here, we're going to say the lines that are not in italics, and then the adults are going to say the italic lines. Okay? Everyone see, kind of? This is going to take us a while to get used to this, so I'm going to lead it for today. We believe in love.
Love is the doctrine of this church.
We believe in truth.
The quest for truth is its sacrament.
We believe in helping others.
And service is our prayer.
We believe in the sacredness of life.
To the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine.
That was great. Good first attempt, everybody. All right. Does anyone know what season we are in? Like, what is happening in this 40 days? That's a clue. Anyone heard of it? What about any of you all? Anyone know where we are? We're in Lent. Has anyone heard of Lent? Emmett, you know a little bit about Lent?
I don't know about it, but
You don't know about it, but you've heard about it. Anyone else out here don't know about it, but they've heard about it? Yeah. Anyone know about it and done it and heard about it and know a lot about it? All right. Yeah. So we're in this period of Lent. And this is the 40 days, sometimes more than 40 days, depending on what kind of faith that you follow, that come before Easter. And it's said to be the time of preparation before Easter for people who follow a Christian faith, okay? But here's the thing about that. There's a real interesting history about Lent, as there is for so much of our religious history. And Lent goes way, way, way back. And for some people, there's a story in the Bible where Jesus goes to the mountains for 40 days before he is going to take on his role as teacher and preacher, as the Son of God in the Bible times. This is the story. And he goes to the mountains, and there he faces some temptations. One is to turn rocks into bread, and one is to jump off of a church, and like the devil is saying to him, if you jump off this church, the angels will catch you anyway. And the other one is to look over all of the cities and all of the places he can see and take them over and be the king of them. But the devil says, but you have to worship me. But Jesus says, I don't think so, because like I'm the Son of God, like I heard this, so I can't do that. So there's this whole story that goes on about this, and that's where Lent maybe came from. But then some people said, well, there's also the 40 days from the Noah's and the Ark flood, and then there's the 40 years that the Israelites were in the desert. So there's some inspiration for Lent from all of those stories. And then there's also people, like a little bit later on, who said, but, okay, we're Christians and we're following Lent, but Lent isn't in the Bible, so this doesn't quite make sense, so I don't think we should do this. So then some people thought that. So then people were like, well, what is Lent? And so here we are today, where some people have this practice of Lent, which is very often... does anyone know what Lent is? Emmett, you said you kind of heard about it. you know what happens during Lent?
Don't you like give something away?
Give something away? Or what do you all think Lent is typically? Give something up, right? Most people here, Lent is a sacrifice or giving up something up. So that story where Jesus went into the mountains, he fasted for 40 days in preparation. And so some people who follow that practice fast for 40 days or some part of that 40 days. And so, like everything, right? Everything is a story, and there's different meanings and different history. But one story I thought you all would like about Lent is the story of a woman from England. Is there anyone here that's from England? We have a visitor from England. Well, she lives in America.
Does wishing that you were from England count?
Yes, wishing you were from England counts. So this story is about a woman from England. And in England, they have a tradition called pancake racing. Have any of you ever pancake raced? No? Has anyone ever heard of pancake racing? Oh, we have another person from England. I forgot. I just embarrassed one person, but we have two people. Okay, so pancake racing is a tradition from England during Lent time. And the story is that in the preparation for Lent, because people were going to fast, they wanted to use up all of their flour and their sugar and their eggs, so they made pancakes. Have you heard of Pancake Day, Shrove Tuesday? Some people have heard of Pancake Day. So this is how Pancake Day started. So this woman in England was running late for church, because she had to get to church to start this beautiful tradition of Lent, and she was running late, and she was making her pancakes, so she ran along the country road in England, flipping her pancake. Thusly started a tradition in a village in England of pancake racing. So we're going to need 2 volunteers to pancake race for us this morning. Do we have two volunteers? Could be anyone. Nobody wants to pancake? It's really fun. Donna, perfect. Any other pancake racers? Awesome. Pat and Donna. Okay, so why don't you go up into that corner, and Pat, you can go into this corner. And this half, like Emmett over, we're going to cheer for Donna, and that half, you're going to be Pat's cheer squad. Okay, so you two need to remember that you're late for church, okay? Pat, Donna, you're late for church, and you're trying to get your pancakes to church. Yes, Alanita? Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. You all can stand up if you want to watch. This is the first annual pancake race of First Parish Brewster. History in the making, friends. Okay, so the rules are you have to flip your pancake as you run, and it has to flip over. All right, does somebody want to say ready, steady, go? You want it, Edie? No? Anyone? Everyone is shy today. Just down here. All right. Ready, set, go. Yeah! Oh, lost pancake. All right. The right side are the winners, and with that we are going to sing our children out. Excellent. You can take the extra pancakes and do some pancake racing downstairs too.
I'm Elenita Muniz. Some years ago, I stated in a public forum that I am a racist and that I think all white people are racist, because if you're raised in this country, you can't help it. It was one sentence and 7 minutes of talking, but it was the only one the Cape Cod Times highlighted. All hell broke loose. My resignation was demanded, I began to receive hate mail, and I was summoned to appear before the Barnstable County Commissioners. In something of a panic, I reached out to my sisters in Women's International League for Peace and Freedom and to the minister of this church. 2 days later, when I arrived at the courthouse, I found there a crowd of some 40 people, most of them from First Parish, carrying signs supporting me. Scott McLean's sign read, "I am a racist too." I was surprised by the numbers and humbled by the risk these people were willing to take for me. I felt supported, surrounded by love, and held. I felt safe. That feeling of support and love and safety is something rare and precious. I get it constantly from my dear partner, Judy, but outside our relationship, that sense of protection and affirmation is rare. Not just for me, but for many of us who attend First Parish Brewster. Back in the days when the gay and lesbian hotline of Cape Cod rang in our house, calls came from lesbian couples looking to settle on the Cape, or from gay men seeking physical connections, or from transgender people seeking support. No matter why they called, eventually Judy or I would say, "You know, you really need to check out First Parish Brewster. You will find there a community and affirmation and resources. You will be surprised." And over the years, some of those callers have come up to us in this meeting house and thanked us for that guidance. Indeed, more than one parent has told us, "This is the only place my child feels safe." Or, "This is the only place my child feels free to be herself." That web of safety and love and support is as essential to our kids today as it was to the often closeted queer and transgender people who called our hotline 25 years ago. Indeed, as our national personality becomes more frightened and threatened and hostile to all who aren't straight, white, able-bodied Christian men, First Parish Brewster needs to spread that web farther and wider and more strongly than ever. Even when I am at my crabbiest with this church, when something has gone in a direction I think is misguided, or when someone disregards our covenant in hurtful, selfish ways, I know how important this church and community are. The continued existence of this faith community is critical to the well-being of our wider community, and that means all of Cape Cod, truly. Churches, sadly, don't have outside funders that we can go to. Our survival depends entirely on ourselves. In the case of First Parish Brewster, we are not just supporting ourselves when we pledge to this church. We are supporting all the at-risk populations of Cape Cod. Once upon a time, First Parish was called the conscience of Cape Cod. We may not have as public a footprint now as we did back in those days, but what we offer to every soul who walks through our door is the same support and acceptance and welcome and love that First Parish Brewster held up for everyone to emulate back then. It is our blessing to be members of this church. It is our charge to steward through this church through our years here, so it will continue to be the safe, welcoming, affirming spiritual home that it has been for so many years. To date, our stewardship campaign has 96 pledges, totaling $253,570. With 1 week to go, we still need 110 pledges and $148,000 more. Whatever amount you and your family can pledge, please know that your pledge matters. It is important. We don't need 100% of the congregation pledging in order to impress some outside foundation or other. We need it for ourselves and for all those on the Cape who have found their own web of safety and welcome here. It is our obligation and our gift to keep this remarkable haven of justice alive and vibrant. And I hope that all of us, one and all, will want to step up and be counted among those who are committed to that sacred charge. Thank you.
Thank you, Alanita. So in this season of Lent, we are going to enter into a time of sharing our joys and concerns with each other. We're going to do this for a few moments in silent reflection. Whenever you feel called to come up to the front, you can come up and light a candle. You can share your joy or concern into the microphone if you would like, or you can hold a silent joy or concern in your heart. If you would like us to bring the microphone to you, just put up your hand and we can do that. As you are called, please join in for joys and concerns.
Light this candle for my son that I lost last week.
I light this candle for the loss of my friend Charlie White a few days ago, a lifelong friend.
I light this candle for the refugees in Ukraine and concern for their lives and their livelihood, and for my concern for my wife, who will be traveling on next Saturday to Poland to volunteer with the World Central Kitchen, helping refugees in this time of crisis.
candle for my son Philip, who is caught in the web of addiction. I light this candle for my dad, who moved from New Mexico to Danvers to a memory care facility.
I light this candle for Reverend Jessica and Penelope Ann, who are walking the Camino Trail in Portugal and Spain, I believe, and for all people who have lost children, the ones just mentioned, and for all of us, that we are able to continue to pray for them and support them and keep ourselves in a good place. It's pretty hard these days.
We need at least one joy. At 11:33, it will be spring.
Is there anyone who would like Liz to bring the microphone to you? I light our last candle for all of the joys unspoken and for all of the concerns unsaid. Let's take a few moments of silence to reflect and hold all of the concerns that have been shared in our presence and know that they are held in safe, sacred space of this community. Spirit of light and love, we thank you for those first signs of spring in our gardens, for the daffodils, for the tulips, for the peepers, for those things that hold us and give us hope, that let us know that the wheel is turning. We also thank you for this beloved community that is here every week and can hold our sorrows, our pains, our griefs. We thank you for the arms and the folks that can hug us and lift us up, for the sounds of the babies and the children as they shared their words with us. We thank you for this beautiful space and this beautiful moment. Amen and blessed be. And now, please rise as you're able and join in singing hymn 1008 in the Teal Hymn Book, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.
We just didn't want to let go of that one. It's a good one. So, when I was probably 6 or 7 years old, I remember being introduced to the idea of Lent. I was told that it was a time where we were expected to give something up, like a bad habit, in the interest of improving ourselves. I feel certain that my mother told me a story about where the practice of Lent came from or how it related to Jesus, but I don't really remember any of that. What I do remember is the idea that my brothers and I should be improving ourselves. It was suggested to my brothers that they should give up having angry outbursts or holding on to bitter feelings or talking back to our parents. The hope was that by giving up these bad habits for 40 days, that the change would become permanent. For me, as the only daughter of the family, the suggestions were a little bit different. I was told, give up desserts for Lent because I was getting a little chubby, and it would do me good to rein in my sweet tooth and lose a little bit of weight. Now, this was the first introduction I had to the idea that my body was too big and that that was, in fact, a moral failing. The idea that my childhood chub was comparable to my brother's angry outbursts was surprising to me. I had angry outbursts too, after all, and they were recriminated heavily. It would not have been enough to just eliminate them for 40 days. Previous to this conversation, I had been pretty unaware of my body. It was, after all, just my body. I lived in it, and it carried me reliably through my days. I swam in the community pool in my body, and I ran through the neighborhood in it, and I danced to music and climbed trees and stomped through squishy mud and splashed in puddles. It was generally a joyful experience of having a body. I had, of course, heard comments here and there from my female relatives about them critiquing their own bodies or being warned not to eat too much of certain foods. But this was the first time that it really sunk in. My body was wrong. And not only was my body wrong, it was morally incumbent upon me to do something about it. After all, if our family was engaging in a sacred practice in the interest of bettering ourselves, and this was the guidance that my trusted adults had handed down to me, it felt like something I really needed to listen to. At first, for a matter of hours, little me took my Lenten responsibilities very seriously. No sweets, no desserts. I was going to be good. Always my goal as a child. Be good, be perfect, squeeze myself into the right shaped box so that I would be properly loved. But as I watched my parents and my brothers enjoying dessert that first night of Lent, while I was served an apple or something equally joyless, I mean, I love apples, but when everyone around you is eating cookies, a dull seed of resentment sprouted in my heart. And for 40 days, that sprout of resentment grew and grew. The resentment grew into despondency. My heart was obviously not pure enough to really want to improve myself for God, because I wasn't doing Lent with a joyful heart. This meant that I wasn't a good Christian girl, and that meant that I needed to just try harder, push those feelings down. I know we've got some therapists in here who are shaking their heads because they know that doesn't work. And of course, it didn't. So little me just went on the way, eventually giving up, moving into a cycle of sneaking sweets, and then feeling intense guilt about failing at Lent and what that meant about me as a Christian, as a person, as a human. At 6 or 7, this was a lot. And looking back with my adult perspectacles on, I can see that Lent was my first introduction to diet culture. It was my first introduction to secret eating, to disordered eating. It was the first introduction I had to body shame. And I've spoken up here before about how I developed anorexia nervosa at the age of 11. Did Lent give me an eating disorder? No. But it did introduce me to the culture that led me there. And none of the adults around me had the tools or the knowledge to do a thing about that trajectory. And I'm willing to bet that I'm not the only one here who encountered the Lent as diet culture special in their childhood. Many of us come to the UU faith as a refuge from the religious trauma of our youth. But what now? As we heal, as we find refuge, how do we go the next step? I've shied away from Lenten practices since I turned away from my strict Christian upbringing, because it's often painful to look back at these practices that caused me so much harm. But as I've been thinking about this and writing this reflection, I find myself turning to curiosity, the tool that gets me through so many hard times these days. And the question I find myself asking is, does Lent have to be a subtractive process? If, as Unitarian Universalists, we are free to make our own meaning and find our own truth, could we instead make out of Lent something new and beautiful and meaningful for ourselves? What if, instead of cutting out, we invited in? So I don't have any answers for you, but I have a lot of questions about what we can invite in during these 40 days. Hope, kindness, transparency, honesty, fun, laughter. And if we can't get quite to joy, maybe curiosity will keep us going.
This morning's offering is a split plate with Jericho Circle Project. The Jericho Circle Project volunteers create and facilitate men's circles in prisons to support personal change and the discovery of deeper truth. These circles help incarcerated men develop tools to come to terms with their inner struggles and bring down the walls that separate them from their loved ones and their communities. Your offering will benefit this organization and the great work of First Parish. Please make checks out to FPBU with split plate on the memo line. Please write a separate check for pledge payments. You can also text to give. The offertory will now be gratefully received. Thank you. For me, Lent has had a relatively new rebirth in my life. I gave up Lent when I gave up Christianity in my teen years. And like many of us who found Unitarian Universalism later in life, I had a troubled past with some of the practices of my old faith tradition, Lent being one of them. But my newfound devotion to Lenten practices started a few years ago when I saw some UU colleagues posting photos on social media. Each day of Lent was a different theme, and folks posted a photo related to that theme. I'm a social media user, some might say over-user, and this didn't seem like any sort of deep and enduring 40-day punishment, so contrary to everything I had known about Lent, I participated and found some real joy in scrolling through the photos on my phone from the past 10 years, finding photos that fit themes like grief, trust, water, solace, vulnerability, and play. And seeing others post under the hashtag UULent, it was simple, joyful, reflective, and I was really buoyed by my first UU Lenten experience. So of course, when Lent rolled around the next year, I was so fired up about it again, I went right back to making a large declaration of Lent. I was going to give up single-use plastic and save the world. I didn't really think about the why of the idea, why I was even doing a Lenten practice, or what the purpose of UU Lent was. I just sort of slipped back into the Lent of my childhood and thought of something that would be a sacrifice for me. And to be fair, I thought it would look great on Facebook. Like, check me out, UU friends. I'm not posting pictures this year. I'm making a difference, a sacrifice if you like. But here's the problem. Lent, which is supposed to be a time of self-reflection and growth, a practice that's meant to be meaningful with purpose, loses all of its meaning when you do like I did and make some sort of arbitrary commitment without thought. Worse, during this period of Lent, I was having twice daily wound care and was in and out of hospital, having to be extremely careful about infection control. I don't know if you have ever experienced the amount of single-use plastic in the medical world, especially when you're on infection control precautions, but it's staggering. And even though my dear beloved, long-suffering surgeon is a very devoted Christian man, my pleas for him to do the surgery old school without single-use plastic, because Lent, were met with a bemused look and a firm no. And so I spent the 40 days of Lent irritated, aggravated, hating life, and mostly failing at the commitment I wanted to make. Didn't look so good on Facebook then, did I? Which brought about this shame and guilt that I knew Lent to be. Doing UU Lent is stupid, my inner 15-year-old concluded, because once again, Lent felt like an arbitrary punishment for no reason. And we don't do that shame and guilt thing here in Unitarian Universalism. I was done. But such is life. The cycle of the year went on, and once again, Lent returned. And this time, I was in my credentialing program, and the subject of Lent came up. What are we all doing for Lent? I spouted my tirade of understanding about Lent based on my previous year's experience and concluded there was no place for Lent in Unitarian Universalism. And someone gently suggested I reflect on that viewpoint for, say, the next 40 days. Sort of a Lenten practice, maybe. I argued back that the spirit of Lent was in the giving up, and they reminded me, in fact, that the spirit of Lent, the spirit of the story of Jesus in those mountains, was one of a time for preparation for what is next. A time to reflect on where you are going, and how you are going to get there. And surely this time of preparation for professional religious leadership was a great time to consider the impacts of me deciding whether or not a practice based on my own personal past experiences was right or wrong for an entire faith. And so, for 40 days, I pondered Lent for Lent. There was no hashtag, no great sacrifice to post about, no pictures. Just me trying to understand how a religious practice that caused me shame and guilt can fit into my faith. This led to a wider exploration of my religious past, and how do I reconcile that with my faith of today? How do we uphold the history of a religious faith when that very history has caused harm? How do folks who range from Christian to atheist, humanist to pagan, worship together and honor each other's faith journeys and find ways to move together when some of these belief systems have harmed each other? How do we covenant together when we disagree? How do we talk about God when we don't all agree on God? And on it went for 40 days. This deep exploration, this tearing apart of my own UU faith. And by the time I came back to my class to report in, I was a mess, with questions about everything, sort of in a UU crisis of faith. And my friend said, "So do you think there is a place for Lenten reflection in Unitarian Universalism?" And so, long, humble, story short, yes, I believe there is a place for Lenten reflection in Unitarian Universalism. And actually, I believe there is a place for many practices that come from our religious pasts, even those that have caused us hurt, even those that we don't know, even those that we don't participate in, or those that are not our own, and especially those whose meanings have been wrongly co-opted to cause harm over the years. As long as those are rethought and done with purposeful intention and care. This year, as I was thinking about my commitment, for what my commitment to Lent would be, I held the question of, what am I preparing for? Where am I now? Where am I going? And how am I going to get there? And so this year my Lenten practice is two-part. I, along with all of you, are preparing for the return of Reverend Jessica to our community, heartbreakingly without her beloved Penelope. This is going to be an uncomfortable time for us, where we adapt to a very sad and hard reality that we didn't want, and navigate that first conversation with a bereaved parent who is also our minister. This will take some spiritual preparation for each of us. For Lent, I chose to give up wearing all black outfits for 40 days, which for me is about a journey of not hiding in the fat body that I inhibit, and not dressing in the colour that society has told me that I should wear. I have been practicing some of that journey on Facebook, and this practice has been opening me to all sorts of interesting commentary on my body, and I am gaining valuable insights for myself and my own vulnerabilities, and also starting to really enjoy clothes for the first time. The excuse of Lent is giving me the courage to explore my wardrobe. But part 2 is that I also chose to get some really bright, colourful clothes. And those clothes, those are for Penelope. I don't love wearing bright colours, but felt this call in the quiet of my heart to spread some of her light earth side as my own way to travel through my personal journey of our shared community grief. And thus, my Lenten practice is once again back to a life-affirming journey. And so, on this third Sunday of Lent, my invitation to you is to reflect on the question, what are you preparing for? And find a Lenten practice, no matter what it is, no matter if you've never heard of Lent before today, or if you strictly fast for all 40 days, that helps you engage with the questions of where are you going, and how are you going to get there? Just see how it feels. Even if you choose to do something that lasts for 1 minute, or choose to do it for the rest of time of Lent, or even if you choose to do it at a completely different time of the year, it's all okay. Just give it a try, and then let me know what you did and what insights you gained, because it is through witnessing each other's faith and each other's paths and hearing each other's stories of religious insights and mishaps and practicing faith in our faith that we can really live out our beautiful, eclectic, Unitarian Universalist religion in a way that can reclaim our religious pasts and move towards a deeper connection with the divine that is ever present in ourselves and in each other. Oh, and I also want to know who the household pancake racing champion is in your houses. Please rise if you're able and join me in singing our closing hymn, 131, Love Will Guide Us. Please reach out in spirit to those who are surrounding you. As we go into our week, may we be held in the spirit of love as we navigate this Lenten time, remembering the trials of our past don't need to be the roadmaps of our future. And together, when we see the power of each other's faiths, then truly our hearts are in a holy place. Blessed be and amen.